The back of this photo says Ed and Charlie, March 1945, somewhere in France.
It just doesn't seem that there's ever been a time that I didn't know Charlie Brakebill.
More than 60 years later, Ed Boling and Charlie Brakebill are still friends.
I first saw Ed Boling up on Lookout Mountain. We were seeing the sights.
At age 18, Charlie met Ed in Chattanooga. The two were headed in the Army and both shared East Tennessee roots.
I'd grown up on a farm, and he grew up here in Knoxville, going to Knox High. In the military, you made friends real quick. You didn't know how long they were, later on, you didn't know how long they were going to live. So you could be with somebody for 3 months, and it seemed like 3 years.
From their training and schooling stateside to their service in Europe and World War II, the two found themselves separated, then reconnected by what seemed like chance at least a half dozen times.
We didn't stay but a month or two together, did we?
And kept saying goodbye.
That included a surprise reunion on the troop ship both took across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, we said goodbye there, and then I got on the ship, and there was Charlie on the boat.
There's Charlie on the boat.
Yeah.
9,000.
In Europe, the pair would again go their separate ways.
There was one picture taken out of one of my letters. It didn't pass the censor.
But once again, Charlie and Ed would manage to reconnect, this time through a secret series of messages Charlie mailed home to his mother.
I knew my mother was worried to death. I knew she had fainted in Sweetwater when I got on the train leaving. And I wanted my mother to know that I was in a safe area. No way to tell them that. You couldn't say what the weather was. You couldn't say who you saw.
Charlie pulled out his paper and pen on a twofold mission. The first, to reassure his worried mother that he was off the fighting lines. The second, to reconnect with his buddy Ed, who was with a different unit but still in France. So Charlie came up with a word trick using his father's middle initial that would pass military censors.
My father's initials, it was Alvin B., and she was very familiar with that.
But instead of Alvin B., Charlie's first note home was addressed to Alvin R., the second Alvin E., the third Alvin N., the fourth Alvin N., the fifth Alvin E., the sixth Alvin S.
She spelled Rennes, French call it, Rennes, the capital of Brittany. So she contacts Ed's mother and daddy and tells her where I am, and he comes to see me. A secret of World War II.
After returning home from the war, their first careers took them separate ways again, but each served as each other's best man in their weddings, and Ed would call on Charlie to join him in a new kind of service at the University of Tennessee.
And I had so much trust in Ed that we'd have gone through hell and half of Georgia if need be.
Charlie Brakebill became the first ever Director of Development at the University of Tennessee. His war buddy, Dr. Ed Boling, became UT President in 1970 and served longer than anyone else in that post, a full 18 years. Not all that long compared to this friendship that has spanned 68 years.